Good to be here, guys. You are a long ways out there. Okay, some of you are way back. It's kind of hard for me because I'm going to want to come back here to you. But I want us to know a couple things as we begin these series of lessons. If you want this to be an excellent series of lessons, you're going to have to make comments, and you're going to have to ask questions, and you're going to have to be involved. Without that, it will not hit home, and it will not have the desired effect that it needs to have. We've decided that there's a microphone that can come around, and if you're really shy about the microphone, you tell him to stop, and I will repeat your question or comment, and we will deal with it from there. And so a lot of people are microphone shy, and I want you to know that do not let that stop you. For this to be successful, you must be involved. That's the way it is. Those are the ground rules. And so, as we begin, I want us to go to Acts chapter 8. Acts chapter 8, there's a passage there, and I know every one of us here are fairly familiar with that passage. But I'm going to look at something that I'm not sure that you've looked at, because it's not there. All right. So once we're all there, one of the things that I try to do with all of our new Christians and anybody that I'm teaching with is I wait until they get to the passage. Because if I quote it, or if I read it to them, their faith becomes in me. Okay? That's rule number one, and I believe that it's very important as you're trying to lead somebody to Christ. And so somebody read Acts chapter 8 and verse 4. Let's get a microphone. Somebody, if you don't want, here we go. We got it.
Therefore they that were scattered abroad went everywhere preaching the word.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. What happened just before this verse? Persecution. Okay? And so, who was being persecuted? Christians were being persecuted. And so, who was scattered? More specific. Who did not get scattered? The apostles and the elders did not get scattered. That means that basically everybody else was scattered. Now, they went everywhere doing what? Preaching what? Preaching the Word. And the Word is the gospel. All right. All right, we've got all that settled. And so we've got the... I don't like terms of when it comes to, but those that were kind of at the top, the authority, they weren't the top. They were the equal value and authority in a lot of things, except they were inspired of God to speak the truth. Okay? Everybody else is gone. They take off. They went everywhere preaching the Word. Now I want you to think. Get out of the box. What does it not say? Doesn't say that in the Bible, and there really weren't any Bibles at that point. That was before a lot of the books were written. But they had the gift. They had, at that point, they had the miraculous gift to be able to speak the truth. What else does it not say?
They didn't have to convert, they just taught.
Okay, they just taught.
It doesn't say that they went to other congregations, sat down and got comfortable.
Okay, didn't say they went. That's a good point. You know, why is it that nobody wants to move to Iowa?
It's cold.
Hey, look, I didn't move there because of the weather. If I was going somewhere because of the weather, it would not have been Iowa. I hate the weather in Iowa.
It's the Democrats.
We got plenty of Democrats, and I've converted a few.
Yeah.
And you know what? They're good people.
They are.
You know, I think they're a little misled in some areas, but you know, I'm not gonna deal with that. But I don't know. I don't know if it's because family's not there. Every time I try to talk to a preacher about going to Iowa, he says, my kids aren't up there. Well, mine aren't either, so I bought an airplane. Okay, so I'm going to get to see my kids. Because I don't intend to leave my work to see my kids. But anyway, what else does it not say? We're not getting there. We're not getting there. There's something that I want to focus on here that I think is so very important to the whole concept of evangelism.
The church grew due to the persecution.
The church grew due to the persecution. I want you to focus on these people's lives. Okay? We got a lot of good comments here. Did you have something?
They didn't go to preacher training school.
They didn't go to preacher training school. That's a good point. I'll tell you what, I get a lot of ammunition as I bring in these and I hadn't thought about that. But you know what? That's pretty important. Because, you know, we don't have to go to preacher training school to learn the Word and preach the gospel. You know, I have people all the time ask me, they say, did you go to college and get a degree? I said, I barely got a high school diploma, you know. And so...
It doesn't say that they made any... it was just part of their life. It was a normal thing that they did.
Okay, it's a normal thing that they did, but let me ask you a question. Go ahead, Leland.
They didn't have fear.
What's that?
Didn't have fear.
They were common people, everyday
Now
people.
you're getting to where now you're getting a common, everyday people.
They were newborn babes themselves in Christ.
They were newborn babes. They were all new. Don't spoil a newborn babe's Christianity and desire and excitement. And a lot of times that's what happens.
Some of them didn't know the Bible.
Okay, a lot of them probably didn't know. That's a good point. It's because, you know, I tell you what, when you go into an area and you win Christians from the community, do you know how much they know? Nothing. Okay? All right, so I want to go back to this comment here. They were ordinary, everyday people. Did these people have to eat? So what do they have to do in order to eat? Did they send in to fill out their form and send it into the government and say, send me a check? They worked. What was their work day? Do you remember what their work day was?
Sun up to sundown.
Sun up to sundown. Basically 12 hours a day.
7 days a week.
7 days a week. 6 days a week. The Jewish would have been 6 days a week. And the others would very likely have been 7. These people were going about their everyday life. And in the midst of going about their everyday life, they were doing what? And what was happening to the church when these people were out teaching and working their job every day, all these long hours to earn a living and feed their kids? Do you think their kids ever had activities that they wanted to go to? I doubt it. No, they didn't. You know they did. They had a lot of activities and they loved their kids and they spent time with their kids. Do you think they really had a lot of time on their hands to kill? Okay. In the past year and a half, I'm always in a state of flux. I'm always doing different things. I'm always testing the waters to see if there's things that I need to learn to do a more effective job. And so I've always wanted to use my fishing boat to win souls. And you know what? I've taught the Bible a lot out of my fishing boat. All right? I got about 5 years ago, I got involved in buying rental property. And so I've got even more involved in that. And, you know, I've always had this preacher mentality. Okay? And I'm not going to cut the preachers down here. Okay? But just hear me out. In our mind, we have a tendency to think that, number one, it's whose job to do the evangelism as a whole. What's the thought? It's the preacher's job. Okay? And so we get a preacher in and we cramp him into an office for so many hours a day so he'll have good lessons. And we expect him to do the evangelism. And so here he is, he's out of the mainstream because he is studying, he wants to have good lessons, and he wants to teach the truth. But we're expecting him to do it, and we think it's his job. But who do you think really is more prepared and more able to get out into the community and reach the lost? The congregation. Do you realize, do you have any idea how many people that I've been able to reach with the gospel because I was dealing with rental property in a community? Yeah. I've got another study right now going with one. I've got people coming to church. I've got kids coming to vacation Bible school. And I've taught an awful lot of people. Because I'm involved in that. And you know what? It's not just the rental property, because what are some other things that you can think of that you'd get involved in if you're involved in something?
City affairs.
City affairs. I know everybody at City Hall. I know the mayor. Have a good relationship with him. All the council members, the people in the newspaper, because they put my name on the front of the newspaper in the midst of all these things that I've been dealing with. And you know what? I've made good contacts. I've made good friends. I've made inroads, good inroads for the gospel. When I get up and fight City Hall, I'm saying, guys, we want to have a Christian environment and be peaceful as we work together and work out good solutions. Do you think that's a good influence? You better believe it is. And you know what? What's that?
You make headway doing that.
You make headway doing that. How many of us are involved in city affairs? How many of us sit on boards in the city? Or other kind of government or whatever? It doesn't have to be city. I got city on my mind because I've been involved in that. How many of us get involved in community organizations? How many of us work a job and we're around people during the daytime? How many of us go to the grocery store or the store of some type? How many of us stop and get gasoline? You know, nowadays, I really resisted that punch the card at the cash register or at the gas pump for a long time. And I finally realized that I can meet people at the gas pump just as well as anywhere else. Guys, we need to get out of the box of looking at the fact that they went into teaching and get into the box of thinking, I can reach the lost. And I'll tell you what. When it says go ye, that means that wherever you find yourself. So where do you find yourself? Give me some ideas. Where do you find yourself in the daytime? Give me one place that you find yourself. At home? Okay, does anybody ever knock on your door? Not really? Do you ever go to the grocery store? You go to the grocery store. Okay, everybody's got to eat. So are there people at the grocery store? Clerks, carriers, and shoppers. They're just full of people, right? Yeah. Where do you find yourself in the day's time? You walk the neighborhood. Now I want to tell you something about walking the neighborhood in contacts. You ever walk the neighborhood? Okay, and you walk by, and it was summertime, naturally, they're out once in a while. Okay? I already know your answer. I'll ask you, how many times do you wave and say hi? Okay? If you do it very often, does it take long before that hi becomes a closer relationship? Does that happen? If it doesn't, you've forgotten, seek and ye shall find. How many of us believe Jesus' words? I think I'm seeing everybody's hand. Did Jesus say, seek and ye shall find? So that means you can. The problem is, we're going to have to be actively seeking. Guys, I want to tell you something about making contacts. Somebody told me that when you retire, you have less time than you ever had. You're so busy and you don't know how you ever got anything else done, and you're having a blast. It used to be that way? Well, I told Dorothy some time ago that we're retired. Basically, the only thing we do is go out and we try to win the lost, and we are having the most exciting and fun time that there ever could be. We're having a blast. And so everybody says, well, it's just winning souls. It's just so hard. I don't really want to do it. And I feel so shy. And I can't. Where are you at? Look them in the eye. Look up here. I can't look them in the eye. But you can. But I don't know if anybody's going to ask this question, but I'm going to deal with this question. Because I really feel that this is a very important part of making and developing contacts. And I'm going to use that as an illustration. I love you. You've got a sister that is very timid and has a very big issue with looking people in the eye and helping to make contacts. This wonderful sister looks at Matthew chapter 28 and verse 19 and feels very, very, very strongly that she has a responsibility. But she feels she's got a major hang-up. And she feels that maybe she's really not pleasing to God because of her emotion that she deals with. So, now I want you to solve the problem for me.
Well, she's taken step one. She knows what she needs to do. She needs to realize step one is taken. Now she's step two. Maybe somebody can help you with step two.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. So in other words, do any of you have some kind of a struggle that you feel that you're incompetent at reaching the lost? Only 3 or 4 of you. That's pretty well. No, okay. Maybe more people are coming. We're getting more of a show of hands. Everybody just, oh, he said something. Okay. What did he say? Everybody else is raising their hand. I'll raise mine. Anyway, so yes, we all have a tendency to feel incompetent in some area. All right. But the thing is, I want to go a little further than say she's got an area she needs to grow on. I want us to keep going, and so let's brainstorm. What are we going to do to help her?
Well, I was going to bring up something that happened to me today.
Let's hear it.
I went to a garage sale. I'm going to wait for him to get older so he can help me here.
Okay. All right. Got a microphone coming. We got to teach him to sprint. I'm just itching.
I went to a garage sale today, bought a bunk bed, and there was 2 gentlemen with name tags on their shirts. Both said Jesus Christ, and I looked at them and I said, "What's y'all's names?" They said Jesus Christ. I said, "How can you be Jesus Christ?" And they wouldn't say anything to me. So I just didn't know what to say after that. It's like, no, I know Jesus Christ died on the cross. Y'all are not him.
Okay. Yeah, people, and this is one of the things that as you're working to make contacts, a lot of times these initial things that we say, I think we need to be very careful to try to understand that this person is somewhere. Okay? And we've got to stop and ask ourselves the question and contemplate where this person is at. And then we're going to have to do, what was that? Was it the movie Bob? Baby Steps? All About Bob. Dorothy would remember that. She laughed through the whole thing and 10 years after. And so what about Bob? Bob brought the book, Baby Steps. Okay? And I think we need to really, really, really use that with every soul we look at. All right? Okay, so now we've got a sister that's got a struggle and she feels bad about it. And we are a family, right? And so what do?
Galatians 6:2.
Galatians 6:2. Read it for me. Or quote it. Be all right.
Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ.
Okay. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ.
We're going to bring it back.
Okay. He's not done.
We're going to work with whoever that is.
Okay.
That's sister, or it could be a brother, whoever, and assist them to grow. It's kind of like Becky was bringing out as we, and it may be something that only one or two people in the congregation know of,
Mm-hmm.
and we work together to resolve the issues.
Mm-hmm.
But
let me ask you a question. Let's say, do you really know where people have been? Do you understand why people are the way they are? Because they're different. Yeah. They're different. Okay? And of course, I'm trying to get to something here, and I think that this is pretty important. Let's hear it.
One aspect is to use two. Team up as a team.
All right. So this is where I'm trying to go. All right? And all of these are good comments, okay? And so don't ever feel like one comment is good and one is not. I've got something in my mind, a point that I really feel that is important to get across, and I think this is important. We, each one, have different strengths and weaknesses. That is good. That is a body. My little finger only has so much strength, but when you add my thumb to it, guess what? It can do about 3 or 4 times as much as that little finger. Now that little finger cannot do what that big thumb can do. But are they both very important? When you put both of them together, do they complement one another? Okay, so this is the point. And I like the fact that we've all got weaknesses, because that means we're all on the same level. And just because somebody has a weakness that to them they feel inferior does not mean that they're inferior. They're better than you in other areas. And so let's get together and let's work with them in such a way so that we can complement the work and accomplish a lot of good things. Does that make sense? And that is something that we need to see in the Lord's body. We are a family. We are a body that fits together. Yes, sir. That's right. That's right. And that's where, that's what's neat. As the different parts of the body work together, do they build strength? And do they learn new skills? And do they complement one another? I think that we really need to see that in the body of Christ. Now, we may tease about some of these things, okay? And I've teased a lot about the eye contact deal, okay? And I don't do it to make light. I do it because I love. Okay? All right? Yes, sir.
Because compliments are more different than
Say that again. I think I heard it right.
A compliments what people hear is not what they understand to see.
Okay, a compliment. Is that what you said? A compliment? Yeah. Compliments are very important, and I want to encourage you. If you want to build the congregation, we need plenty of compliments. There's enough bad in all of us that we better be awful careful about condemning the rest of us because we see faults. We're a body, and we're either growing or dying. And if the body destroys one another, it's not growing. It's dying. And that's very essential in winning the lost. We need to compliment each member of the body, encourage each member of the body in the things that they can do. I tell you what, when we do that, we will work to win a lot of souls. And just because one person can't look somebody in the eye doesn't mean that they can't be involved in nurturing and building up and encouraging those that we want to win to Jesus Christ. They don't have to do that. Everybody does not need to look somebody in the eye and build and make the contact. We use them to build and develop contacts. Doug?
One of the things that I've noticed over the years is that take somebody like, what's your name? Sophia? Is that what they call it? Diana. That doesn't have the for lack of a better word, the desire to go out and be out there.
She has the desire.
She has the desire, but she doesn't have the. How would you want to describe that? What word would you use to describe that?
She just struggles.
Yeah, the struggle.
She just struggles.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you take somebody like that, and you get somebody else in the congregation that has those same problems. A new person in the congregation, she will fit in and associate with that person so much better than you or I, because we're so boisterous and outgoing.
Yeah.
And so they have their place, and they can strengthen the congregation, they can build the congregation in that aspect where somebody else may not.
That's right. That's right. And that's, I think it's very essential that we need to remember. Here, my microphone will work here.
Okay, if you're ready to talk about a little bit about the love of the congregation where we are, and that's why we are growing.
Okay. All right. And this is one thing as we work with contacts, we have a lot of people that attend at Newton that are not Christians yet. Each one is a little different. Some I will develop quicker than others. But I'll tell you what, this thing of working together is pretty essential. And so we need to keep that in mind, because we have people that come that tell me this is the first church that I've ever been in my life. This one was over here first. This is the first church that I've ever been in my life that I didn't feel judged when I walked through the door. Now, I want you all to take a step back, and I want you to look at what goes on when somebody unfamiliar comes through the door. I just want you to watch. And I want you to put yourself in their shoes. And I want you to ask yourself this question. Self, if that was me in those shoes, would I feel that I was loved and welcomed? Or would I feel that I've already been judged and they don't want anything to do with me? You hear what I'm saying? I want you to step back and put yourself in their shoes. The Lord's church should be the most loving, inviting, heavenly group of people on the face of this earth. If the Lord's church is not a taste of heaven, it's not what it's supposed to be. And I'll tell you what, it's real easy to get that Pharisaical attitude of, I'm going to heaven, and they're involved in sin. I can't be around sin.
We're commanded to.
But are we? We need to be. What kind of people did Jesus find Himself company with?
Publicans and sinners.
Publican sinners. If you find yourself at a community activity and there's beer around, are you going to leave? You might be excommunicated if you don't. But I don't think the Lord would be pleased if you do. There comes a time when it's time to bail out. I want us to think about this, brethren. Was Jesus around ungodly people? Do we want to win the lost? Are the lost ungodly? Do they do ungodly things? Are they living in adultery? Are they living in fornication? Do they lie? Do they steal? Do they cheat? Do they drink? Do they do drugs? Do they?
Yes.
Are you with them?
No.
You know, I did my solo flight 2 weeks ago. I land in Trenton, Missouri, and I've got a text message from a drug addict. A drug addict that I've spent an awful lot of time sitting in their living room trying to help them to change their life. Do you ever get in a drug addict's living room? I've sat in the room with a pimp and studied the Bible with him. I've studied with harlots. I think Jesus did too. And I'm going to tell you something, brother. We have focused on 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 33 so much without looking at the rest of the picture. And we get into a nice, fine congregation with wonderful, loving Christian people. And we forget that there's a lost world out there. When I moved to a community with no Christians but Dorothy and I, it put a different perspective on things. I used to preach 1 Corinthians 15:33 and tell, hey, brethren, you better be careful with your associations. But I forgot where the lost were. So if you're not with the lost, are you seeking? Are you seeking the lost if you're not with them? How can you? That's the point. That's the point. When we will focus on lost souls, you don't have to look them in the eye. I say a lot of things for effect in my teaching to bring across a point. There's a lot of areas of evangelism that you can get involved in. You don't have to look them in the eye to win the lost, because every part of the body is very important. But you're going to have to get involved with those ungodly people. I believe, I am convinced that you and I live in the best of times. We live in a time where people are so drugged out and so despondent with the sin that they're involved in, and they're looking at the misery that they're going through, and they're saying there's got to be something better than this. And we're just getting together with the brethren for a potluck. You will not win the lost unless you get involved in their lives. You will not win the lost unless you get involved in their lives. You're going to find there's a lot of hurt out there. You're going to find that they're in immense pain that they don't know how to deal with. You're going to find that they've been traumatized. You're going to find that they've gone through all kinds of experiences as a child and as an adult, and the pain that they've experienced. They've been through all kinds of bad relationships. They've been all through all kinds of problems. And you're going to find out that there's a miserable world out there. But they desperately need you. They don't know that they need you. They desperately want you, but they don't know that it's you that they want. And so you got to go back to the patience. You got to go back to starting where they're at. I use anything and everything in their lives. I look at where they're at, and I try to lead them from where they're at to where they need to be. If we want to have gospel meetings, Let's have meetings and subjects that appeal to those that are lost. And those meetings aren't the church. They could care less. It ain't the plan of salvation. They have no clue. They don't care. They want to know how to have a good life. They want to know about the love of the Lord, and they want to know that there is something better. When they learn that there's something better, then they're going to want to find out what that is. And sometimes that's a slow process. It took me about 3 or 4 years to win Roy to the gospel. He cleaned my carpet. Okay? He's a wonderful brother. But until his health got bad, he didn't want to talk about it. He had a real attitude about religion, and he'd been involved in one that his wife was in. He was sick of that. I don't blame him. But I didn't push him. I looked for opportunities. I looked at building a foundation to bring him where he needed to be. I waited until he got sick. Somebody gets sick, they need something, don't they? All right? And when he got sick, I said, Roy, let's study the Bible together. He said, okay. It took another year after that, but he obeyed the gospel. And guess what his wife said? She's coming to church with him. She said, I've been a member of the Salvation Army all my life, and I'm going to be that from the day I die. I said, good. I said, I'm happy for you. You might want to condemn me for that. But you know what? I didn't push her. She came to church with her husband. And I never told her she was wrong. In fact, I was studying with Roy, and he would come back to the next study and said, I told my wife she had to be baptized. I said, keep your big mouth shut. Shut your mouth. Leave her alone. Because you're going to run her off. Got another study going with a lady, and I taught him several years ago. And that's the first thing they did. Got the first study, and they went out to eat before the next study, and she said, I want to know about this baptism thing. And so he begins to explain. It took about half an hour to get her straightened out before she'd study again. I said, you just about blew it. I told him that later. Leave her alone until she's ready. And so this woman that said, I've been a member of the Salvation Army all my life, I'm going to be that the day I die, she began to weaken. And I didn't push her. She heard some gospel messages, heard a little about a few things. And one Wednesday night, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, she came up to me on the steps afterwards and she said, Fred, I need to be baptized. I said, Roy, get out of her face. He wanted to tell her all the things he was learning. I said, shut up. He said, you go run her off. She is going to be obey the gospel. She'll be one of the next 3 or 4 that obey the gospel. Okay? Another man started coming to church numerous years ago. And one of the things you need to understand about contacts, go get your first contacts. Go get them established and start working with them. And then branch out from there. A man that obeyed the gospel, Kenneth, his grandson came. And of course everything was a mess there. And he came a couple times to church and brought his kids. And of course it was a mess. So he just couldn't deal with it and he quit. He had a lot of things going on in his life. And about, 3 years later, he comes back. And then, I don't know how orderly your services are, but he sits in the front. And, for the first 2 times, I'm preaching along and he interrupts. And a few weeks, 2 months ago, he said, in the middle of the sermon, he looked at me and he stopped me and said, Fred, I need to be baptized. Well, he ain't ready. And so I said, we'll study. And so for the first time, and I don't know when, I told him last night, I said, we're going to have to cancel the study night. I'm tired. I got to go preach this weekend, and I've got, he wanted to start at 9 o'clock. So I turned him down. And so, take your time. If you do not wait and be patient, you're not going to win souls. They're looking, they're desperately wanting, but their lives are in a state of shambles and they're in misery, and they need you to be patient. Somebody read 2 Timothy 2, 24 through 26. We need to look at these words and recognize that this is essential with making contacts. Get out into the community and follow these things. 2 Timothy 2, 24 through 26. This is essential for making contacts, building contacts, and winning souls. And if we don't follow this path, we're not going to win souls. We got it right here.
And the servant of the Lord must not strive.
He must not what?
Strive.
What's strive? Not work.
No, that means to
quarrel.
Quarrel, yeah.
You ever get in an argument about the Bible? That's sin. God says the servant of the Lord must not strive. Have I been guilty of it? Yeah. I had a shouting match with two young men in Jamaica till 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, I'll never do that again. I learned a good lesson. Quit arguing. You lost if you do. Keep going.
But be gentle.
Be what?
Gentle.
Whoa, wait just a minute. If we don't really rough them up and let them know that they're going to have to change, they'll never obey the gospel. Wrong? You're calling me wrong? Thank you. Gentle. 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 Do we understand what gentle means? Is that a command of the Lord? You put yourself in their shoes and walk in them for a little while and see how you would feel if somebody comes up to you and says, you need to be baptized or you're going to hell. You can study with them? Now that may have worked in the 40s and 50s. But we live in a different world. It ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. Keep going.
But be gentle to all men, unto all men, apt to teach, patient.
Oh. What's the P word?
Patient.
Patient. Hey, no, wait a minute. You're asking way too much. Patience is not one of my strong points. I want it now. I'm afraid they're going to die before I cram the gospel down their throat and they're going to go to hell. I don't have time for patience. The clock's ticking. They might die tomorrow. Do you know how many people I've talked to in the afternoon and scraped them up off the road at night? But what did Jesus say? He said, be patient. Guys, I think we better take patience as long as it takes. I think we need to learn patience, and we need to learn it big time, and we need to take it very, very seriously. And we need to remember that it's a command of the Lord. I believe it's so easy to lose patience. You know why I know that? Because I'm guilty. Experience. How many people did I win when I lost patience and I wanted it now? Zero. Do you know why we're winning so many in Newton? I think that's a big one.
You know, every single one of my kids have a different attitude.
Yep.
Tommy, I'm going to use him real quick. The other day, there's a piece of trash right in front of your face. You could see it. And I was yelling at him. Getting impatient with him. I finally said, Tommy, come here. I said, Tommy, I'll quit yelling at you. Look at that piece of trash right there. He said, I couldn't see it because you were yelling at me.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. You see, the point was being, and I don't know how many of you heard it, but he raised his voice at his child to see something. In his child's mind, he's going berserk because the voice is getting louder, and so he can't concentrate. Do any of you have that trouble? I'm done. If the voice goes up, I'm toast. I'm finished. We can see it in children. Do you believe for 1 second that lost soul is any different? We need to be strong on patience. Take time to give them an opportunity to learn the little tidbits of the foundation before they get the point. You build the foundation first, and then the point makes sense. I do not have any trouble with people telling me I don't believe Ephesians 5:19. And the reason is because I leave it alone until I build the foundation. If you don't do that with contacts, there will be no souls won. Go ahead and read the rest of that.
In meekness.
Meekness. Keep going.
Instructing those that oppose themselves, if God peradventure will give them repentance to the acknowledging of the truth, and that they may recover themselves out of the snare of the devil, who are taken captive by him at his will.
Really need to focus on the terms for the soul winner in those passages. And you need to work at them every day to try to do better. And you need to get involved in the community. Get involved in the community. Rub shoulders with people that sin. Go some of the places where they go. And get involved in their lives. Because if you don't get involved in their lives, it ain't no use to practice patience. Because you won't have contacts.
On your verse you were speaking about a while ago about, I think it's unequally yoked together.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to associate with the world. We live in the world.
We're commanded to. Yeah.
But what that is telling us is that we do not participate in their sin.
That's right. That's right.
We have to be associated. And how are we going to save somebody? I mean, if all we know is people as Christians, how are we going to save anybody?
It's a good point. Excellent point. Okay, I'm out of time. And I forgot that we had an invitation song. We got another class, and I'm assuming it's at 8. And so, let me ask you a question. Matthew 7 says, "Seek, and ye shall find." Do you trust the Lord? If you do, you will trust and obey. If anybody needs to respond to the invitation, do it as we stand.